Guten Abend alle. So, we want to continue with our discussion of Chaitanya-charitamrita as an overview. And first we need to make some electronic connections. It's a little bit like plumbing. Wie sagt man auf Deutsch? Plumbing, like with water pipes. Wie sagt man auf Deutsch? Kanal. We learned a little trick which may, let's see if this will work. We're expanding. Very good. Now if we can move it over, that's the trick. Yes, oh, not so far. Oh, how do we get it to stay in one place? Okay, I know what to do. Do this and move the whole thing. Oh, can't move it. Let's go back. Let's go this way and try again. There, that works. More this way. It's okay. It's okay. All right. Good. So thank you all for coming again. We don't have our Russian devotees this time, so we don't have need for any translation. We're okay? Okay. All right. Little bit of review from what we discussed yesterday. I was saying that this verse and the next verse from almost the beginning of Adi Lila is actually giving us the whole Chaitanya-charitamrita in a kind of nutshell. We could take other verses for a similar purpose. But Guru Vaishnava Bhagavan tinera smaraṇe, he's remembering these three principles, and as a result of remembering what is happening, first of all, it's maṅgala-ācaraṇa, auspicious invocation, and then there's a result, tinera smaraṇe hoy, vighna-vināśana, anāyāse hoy, nija, vāñchita-pūraṇa. Such remembrance destroys all difficulties and very easily enables one to fulfill one's own desires. Nija means own, so. And vāñchita means desires, and pūraṇa is actually, sometimes you'll see this in songs from Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in his own Vanita, his own signature, he'll say bhakti-vinoda, so that extra, instead of bhakti-vinod, he'll say bhakti-vinod. Why? Because it fits better to the rhythm of the song. And you see this quite commonly in, at least in Bengali. So the word is purna, but it's pūraṇa here in order to add an additional syllable. It even comes, I've seen it in one place in Sanskrit, in the in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Anyway, that's a detail. So all desires fulfilled by remembering, all obstacles, vighna-vināśana, all obstacles destroyed. This, I would say, can be applied to the entire Chaitanya-charitamrita. If we can hear and read Chaitanya-charitamrita, then who would not like all obstacles to be overcome and all desires to be fulfilled? Maybe this is what we should be advertising, promoting Chaitanya-charitamrita. Fulfill all your desires. Read this book. It'll fulfill all your desires. Have you spoken like that on distributing books to people sometimes? No? Read this book and it'll fulfill all your desires. Yes? You have done? Huh? Sometimes. Okay. Right. I have a few thoughts of what we can do, but maybe, again, what happens if I do that? Whoops. Oh, then I can't. How do I get back? Back. Bring me back. No, I guess I have to do this. Okay. What did I want? I wanted this. And let's see. Yes, I didn't want that though. I wanted this. Okay, and then we bring this here and do this. All right, so we have Keshav Maharaj's quick start. Remember, we were saying this is like a quick start booklet for reading Chaitanya-charitamrita, and we did a very quick overview of Adi Lila. With these four categories or four types of function: invocation, incarnation, education, transformation. And we continued with Madhya Lila, renunciation, and then propagation. Now, we just started with propagation, and I was thinking about this. It's not just propagation, because what is propagation? What, you know this word in, wie sagt man auf Deutsch? Propagation.
Propaganda.
Mm-hmm.
Propaganda.
Propaganda. Okay. Yeah, that's the word, isn't it? When I was a kid growing up in America, the word propaganda was applied to what all the bad guys do in those terrible communist countries. That was propaganda. We don't do propaganda. That was the deep illusion that we were raised in. Yeah, propagation, propaganda. Now, what if we think about this in the context of the two purposes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to appear? It's explained in Adi Lila starting in chapter 1, and elaborating. The Lord Chaitanya has an external purpose and an internal purpose, right? So we might think, okay, propagation, that sounds like external, isn't it? That's the propagation, the mission, the outreach. Wie sagt man outreach auf Deutsch?
Öffentlichkeitsarbeit.
Oh, ja. Oh. Ja. Okay. Gut. Öffentlichkeitsarbeit. Anyway, this I like the word outreach more. So we could say Lord Chaitanya had two purposes. One was outreach, and the other was inreach. He was reaching into his deepest self, his deepest, the deepest longing of himself as the Lord, who is feeling something missing. What is he missing? He's missing the experience, the feeling, and the understanding of the glories of Srimati Radharani's love. As one of my godbrothers likes to put it, he says, God has a problem. What is the problem? The problem is that because he's God, he is deprived of the experience of what it feels like to love God. And so to solve that problem, in order to experience what it would be like, what it is like to be a devotee, he appears as a devotee. So that we can say is the inreach. And with all due appreciation of Keshav Maharaj's catchy single word label for chapters 7 through 15 of propagation, certainly there's more going on. There is especially and very dramatically, I would say, in chapter 13. Anyone knows what happens in chapter 13 of Madhya Lila? Just without looking. Nowadays, everyone has their mobile phone, and when you ask them a question, they just Google. Yes.
King Kasi?
Sorry?
Is King Kasi
King?
Kasi?
The Kazi in Madhya Lila. No. That's way back. That's in Navadvip. And we're in Puri now. We're in South India, and then we're in Puri. Chapter 13 is the famous Ratha Yatra description. And what's happening in that description of Lord Chaitanya? What's happening with Lord Chaitanya? What's going on? It's a very public scene described. It's describing Lord Chaitanya with his many associates expanding himself into not one, not two, not three, but 7 forms simultaneously, participating in 7 different kirtan groups, right? And what is Lord Chaitanya doing in those groups as they are singing?
He's dancing.
He's dancing.
With tears.
Oh, is he dancing? Oh. I always say, why didn't someone have a video camera? Video, that dancing. So yeah, he was dancing, he was spinning around, he was collapsing on the ground, his arms were elongating out of his body. It was like he was becoming disjointed. That's how it's described. And then the opposite would happen. Kurma Rupa, his limbs would shrink into his body. And yes, the tears, they were like syringes, you know. All the different symptoms or features of ecstatic devotion were exhibited by him. But why were all these ecstatic emotions there? What was the prompting? What was the uddipa? What was the impulse for all of this? Was he just making a big show for the crowds because he's propagating bhakti yoga, Krishna consciousness? He wants people to, be impressed by. Yes, exchanges with devotees. It's especially the exchange with Lord Jagannath, isn't it? Because what is the Ratha Yatra a reenactment of? Okay, but there's a very specific action that's being reenacted.
Bring Krishna back to Him.
Yes, from where?
From
From? Not from Dwarka. Not from Dwarka. Yes, from Kurukshetra. Exactly. Yeah. So it's the gopis saying, you gotta come with us. This Kurukshetra place, no. There's no enjoyment for us here. We're seeing you, but how are we seeing you? It's no fun. We can't relish all of this Aishvarya that Lord Krishna was displaying, having come from Dwarka, right? They came from Dwarka to Kurukshetra. Why? Krishna, together with his wives and big entourage, horses, elephants, soldiers. Why did they come to Kurukshetra? Hmm?
Was there some kind of lunar eclipse? And there was some event going on, but I don't remember clearly what it was.
Solar eclipse, no? Yes, let me tell.
He came with Supadra Balaram.
It came with Balaram.
Supadra helped him to come to Vrindavan. But that is different story.
I think that's different. But maybe they're related. I'm not sure. No, there was a solar eclipse, and the thing to do when there's a solar eclipse, apparently, is you go to the lakes that had been formed. Now there's one very big lake there. Anyone has been to Kurukshetra? Anyway, so there were a few lakes, I don't remember, 5 or 7 lakes of blood. Huh? Parashara, not Parashara. Parashurama, yes, Parashurama, yeah. Parashurama was on a mission. He was on a genocide mission. Get rid of all the Kshatriyas. We don't like Kshatriyas. Finish them all off. Not once, not twice, but 21 times. That's a lot of Kshatriyas. That's a lot of blood. Enough to make some lakes. And then those lakes, apparently the blood transformed back into water. In any case, that's the place to go when there's a solar eclipse. But that was all just an excuse, right? It was all just a pretext to meet the residents of Vrindavan, and in particular to meet, for Krishna to meet his sweethearts, right? So they come and they meet, but it's like, where are we now? No, this is too much. Come with us. And so there's this pulling of the chariot of Krishna. Well, did they actually drag all the way to Vrindavan? Maybe, I don't remember hearing this, but the idea is there, and that idea, at least, is being reenacted in Chaitanya-charitamrita. In the Ratha Yatra, but specifically that's the understanding of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, the followers of Lord Chaitanya. They have this understanding. There's lots of rich ritual, sort of traditional explanations of Ratha Yatra. Locally, it has to do with the moon calendar and the season change and whatever. But we understand the inner meaning from revealed by Lord Chaitanya is it's Lord Krishna being brought to Vrindavan, and therefore the Gundicha Mandir is representing Vrindavan for the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. So that's all very internal, that's all in reach. There's outreach and there's in reach, and that's all happening in the Ratha Yatra, but also prior to the Ratha Yatra and during the Ratha Yatra. There's a very interesting dynamic going on between Lord Chaitanya on one side and King Prataparudra on the other. And it's so interesting because Lord Chaitanya has taken sannyas. And sannyasis don't mix with kings, with political people. Back then, at least, that was the understanding. I must confess, just a couple of weeks ago in Slovenia, it was arranged that I meet one of the former prime ministers of Slovenia. This would be absolutely not possible in Lord Chaitanya's time. He's a very nice man, I must say, very humble, vegetarian, very appreciative of devotees. Lord Chaitanya would have nothing of it. When Prataparudra was proposing that he meet Lord Chaitanya, he was staying in Cuttack, the capital of Odisha. It's called Odisha now. It used to be Orissa. Now it's officially Odisha. Or Odisha. Odisha, I don't know. Odisha. Yeah. Oh, you're making translation. Okay. I will try not to speak too fast. And that exchange, that dynamic begins in chapter 12 of Madhya Lila. And maybe just a little bit of that we can touch on. Let's see. Adi Lila, Chaitanya-charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 12. Yes, this is the beginning section. It's about 70 verses in the beginning of this chapter. Let's go over these. Yeah, starting with verse 4, and a little larger. Purve dakhin hoite pravujabe aila tare milite gojapati utkantita hoila. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu returned from his South Indian tour, Maharaj Prataparudra, the king of Odisha, became very anxious to meet him. In the verse it says Gajapati, because the kings were known and are known as Gajapati. So the present king of Puri, who is life member of ISKCON, and who has been twice to Germany and has met devotees. Were any of you here? No, I don't think so. First time I met him, he came to Singhachalam with his wife, the queen, and very humble. They just sat on the floor, like all of us sitting, sat and listened as it happened. I was giving the morning Bhagavatam class. They just, just like any visitor congregation member, and then I found out he's the king of Puri. And then, I don't know, 2-3 years later, I don't remember, he came to Berlin. Were you there then?
No, I know the story.
Yeah, he came to Berlin, and it was Berlin Rath-yatra, the day for Rath-yatra. You know this story. Then he, we were all preparing for the procession, and we said, Maharaj, you're here. You can do the sweeping. It'll be wonderful. The king of Puri sweeping the street. That's what the king does in Puri. Actually, if you've seen videos, you'll see he doesn't sweep the street, at least not anymore. He sweeps on the platform, up on the carts, around on all three carts. Anyway, yes, so we said, oh, we would be so blessed if you would do this. He said, I'm very sorry, but it's strictly forbidden for me to do this service anywhere outside of Puri. He said, if I do this and it would be seen, anyone makes photo or whatever and sends, he said, I'll be in big trouble. This is strictly forbidden. It should be done by the local senior administrator. In other words, it should be the mayor of Berlin who does it. Devotees had invited the mayor, but he declined. But what struck me was that Gajapati Maharaj came on the Ratha Yatra, and going along Kurfürstendam, he was walking barefoot. Because that's the standard. You don't go on procession wearing shoes. We all wear shoes because we don't want to, there's glass on the street and whatever. But he went barefoot. Anyway, Gajapati, it says, Tare milite Gajapati utkantita hoila. He became utkantita, he became anxious, full of anxieties. Why? He wants to see Lord Chaitanya. And then it goes into quite some detail about how he wants to meet Lord Chaitanya. He arranges, he meets us, or he sends a letter to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Yeah, so he's in Kathak, and he sends a letter to Sarvabhauma. There were no mobile phones at the time, or any kind of phones, so he sends a message. Please make some arrangements so I can meet Mahaprabhu. And so then there's this interesting interaction that goes on, where the devotees know it's not going to be easy to convince Mahaprabhu to meet the king. It's going to be, if it's going to happen, it'll be a miracle. It's probably, but they felt, the king was really expressing such devotion. It really would be nice if they could meet. And so the devotees as a group, they all go to Lord Chaitanya and they're all, it's nice to be with you today, Mahaprabhu. Yes, what do you want? What's on your mind? Come on, out with it. And then I think it's Nityananda Prabhu finally says, well, the thing is, and then he explains that the king wants to see him. We're just conveying a message. Is there any way it's possible? No, it's not possible. But then he says, and they're saying, but he's such a devotee, and if he doesn't see you, he's threatening that he's going to renounce the kingdom, he's going to become a begging yogi, wearing one ivory ring in his earlobe. And, if that happens, everything falls apart. So we don't want that to happen. We also don't want you to be disturbed. But what are we supposed to do? So it was kind of it was a problem. And so at one point, Lord Chaitanya says, well, for a sannyasi to see a king is, what are people going to say? It's going to ruin my reputation. And they're saying, no, but you're not just a sannyasi, you're the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You are Swayam Bhagavān. So this is a kind of theme that also threads its way through the Chaitanya-charitamrita. It's part of this external, internal issue. Is externally he's a sannyasi, a sadhu. Internally, he's something much more than that. And the devotees, Krishnadas Kaviraj tells us, they recognize that. They understand he is not just some sannyasi. He is so much more. In fact, he is none other than the Lord himself. And therefore, they're saying, you are completely independent, and therefore it doesn't matter what anyone says or thinks. So then Mahaprabhu says, all right, if Damodar Pandit agrees for me to see the king, then I will go ahead. Why Damodar Pandit? Because Damodar Pandit had taken it upon himself, as he had sort of decided himself to make this his service to Lord Chaitanya, to always point out faults. If he made any fault, anything wrong, Damodar Pandit would point it out. He was always so outspoken. It was embarrassing to the devotees, and it was embarrassing to Lord Chaitanya, but he tolerated until one time, doesn't he send him to Bengal just to get rid of him for some time? These things are going on. Things that happen nowadays were going on back then also amongst devotees.
Chaitanya sent him.
Sent Damodar, yes. Maybe it's better you go away for some time. So Lord Chaitanya said, well, if he says it's okay to see the king, then okay. And Damodar Pandit was present when he said that. So Damodar Pandit, what do you say? And Damodar Pandit says, you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You are independent. You can do whatever you wish. And Lord Chaitanya was not convinced that he was giving permission, saying, yeah, it's okay. No, he's saying, yeah, you can do whatever you like. Right, okay. What to do? This is when Nityananda Prabhu comes up with an idea. I know, he says, let us have one cloth from you, some prasadi cloth, one of your uttariya, something, and we'll give that to the king. And this will pacify him. At least he won't give up his life. At least he won't become a beggar and do something crazy. This will give him reassurance that maybe someday it's going to be possible to see him. That gesture will be there. So they do like that, and that function and that plan, you can say, works. But the king still wants to see him personally. What to do? Okay, plan B. No, this was plan C, I think. Have him send his son. I will meet his son. No one will criticize if I meet his son. It's not mentioned how old his son was, but apparently he was quite young. And so they arranged for his son to come, and the young prince, apparently they had dressed him up like Krishna, with a yellow dhoti and like that. And so when Lord Chaitanya saw him, Lord Chaitanya always, it was very easy, apparently, to sort of trip Chaitanya Mahaprabhu into ecstasy if the right circumstance was there. So in this case, all it took was this young boy wearing a yellow dhoti, and Lord Chaitanya was overwhelmed. And so he embraces the boy, and then the little prince goes back and meets his father, and his father embraces him. The boy has become electrified by Lord Chaitanya, so he's feeling, I think the word prema is used, Krishna prema. And then he's carrying that to his father, and his father embraces, and then his father is feeling the same ecstasy. Just see. That is propagation. It's propagation. That's the best. That's the ideal form of propagation of Krishna consciousness. Not something to imitate, but it does, yes, devotees to embrace and devotees, this is also part of the practice of bhakti. So this, there's this dynamic of, on the one side, from the external perspective, this king and the sannyasi, in these identities, how can they meet? They have to meet because there is this principle bhakti, and bhakti transcends all of these considerations, but still those considerations are there. And so much of the drama in Chaitanya-charitamrita is about that, you can say, transcendental tension between external circumstances and you could say the imperative of bhakti, the internal imperative. You know the word imperative? Imperative? Okay. Right, now, time passes quickly. Let me just briefly show this, and we may elaborate on it some more in the coming days. This was a kind of crude graphic attempt to try to show just one way. There's so many ways you can appreciate Chaitanya-charitamrita, but this is one way that I found helpful for my own understanding. I call it a mandala of positions, multiple contexts of Chaitanya Vaishnavism. Now, this is highly abstract, but sometimes abstraction can be a little helpful. So here's what I'm trying to suggest. You'll see on the top left, number 1, Chaitanya and his direct associates, and then there's a line pointing to the middle circle, which is sort of orange saffron color. Now that central orange circle, one could make a whole nother graphic which would just expand within that circle and give more detail of the different associates of Lord Chaitanya and their different relations. But okay, let's just say they're all in one group. These are the close and direct associates of Lord Chaitanya, whether they are servants, whether they're disciples, whether they are a king, In this case, King Prataparudra becomes, in effect, an associate. His parents, his friends, and so on. They're all in that area. Well, then we see different passages in Chaitanya-charitamrita which are describing Mahaprabhu's encounter with different Vaishnava groups. Some of these are kind of quite explicit, and some are one at least I can think of as more implicit. So this pink ring, which circles around the orange circle, is representing these other Vaishnava groups. So these are Vaishnavas, but they're not Gaudiya Vaishnavas. They're the Sri Vaishnavas, which are very prominent, especially in Tamil Nadu today. There are what in the Chaitanya-charitamrita are called the Tattvavadis, the followers of Madhvacharya, mainly Karnataka and I guess northern Kerala and Bangalore. There are the Vallabha, there's the Vallabha Sampradaya. Vallabhacharya is mentioned a few times. And there's also, not mentioned by name, but there is one, as a follower of the Vaishnava tradition, but there is, the Nimbarka Sampradaya is also represented. And the Nimbarkis, in particular, are represented by someone who is identified as Keshava Kashmiri. Keshava Kashmiri. He's called Kashmiri because apparently he came from Kashmir. And I did a little research on this years ago. He was a very prominent member of the Nimbarka Sampradaya. Highly respected member. The historian I spoke to we would probably say speculated, but she had analyzed that this Keshava Kashmiri must have lived some 100 years before Lord Chaitanya. Now, if we read Chaitanya-charitamrita, we want to say, well, that's not true, because Lord Chaitanya met him when he was young. Did he meet him? That's a question the historians would ask. But let's assume that he meets someone named Keshava Kashmiri. Maybe there were more than one Keshava Kashmiri. In any case, from the perspective of Krishnadas Kaviraj, the author, he is saying, Lord Chaitanya met with this famous scholar and proceeded to thoroughly embarrass him by his very humble criticism of the poetry of this pundit, this scholar. That's described in, where is it, chapter 17 of Madhyalila, so the last chapter, I believe. Here, my point to sort of generalize is whether it's Keshava Kashmiri, whether it's Venkata of the Sri Sampradaya, whether it's the Tattvavadis, there's no specific name given that he meets, or whether it's Vallabhacharya, always we see Lord Chaitanya in the higher position. Lord Chaitanya always wins. he's always doing something which shows the superior position. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in his Navadvipa Mahatmya, describes in sort of his mystical vision, we may say, how all the different, the founder acharyas of the different sampradayas, they all meet with Lord Chaitanya before Lord Chaitanya appears. And Lord Chaitanya gives them each instructions about what they should teach. You should emphasize this, you should emphasize this aspect of Vaishnava practice and so on. And then Lord Chaitanya, he comes as the culmination, the ultimate of all that. So what I wanted to say is there's something in common with all of these different Vaishnava groups. That Lord Chaitanya meets them, and in some way we understand, okay, that's nice, they're Vaishnavas, but there's something more. And that something more we are receiving from Lord Chaitanya. I'm thinking rather than sort of rambling on, maybe I should stop there and just, if we can discuss a little. I don't want to go too long, and I don't want to make our translator tired. What is your good name? Irina. I know how hard. I don't know, but I know how hard it is to translate. You have to simultaneously hear and process and bring it out in a different language. It's not easy. There's no time for thinking, right? Yes.
Thank you, Maharaj, for the nice lecture. I have a question. It's okay. This Leelas of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sound very special to me. And how can we learn from this? Because it sometimes seems very far away from everything that we can experience. For example, he's 7 persons and dancing on different parties.
Yeah, some things we should just appreciate. It's something wonderful. Should I repeat the question before for the wider universe? I don't know if you were heard. The question, tell me again your name. How do you spell?
M-O-R-I-T-Z.
M-O-R, Morris.
Yes.
Ah, Morris, okay. Yeah. Okay, one way to understand, I mentioned it, just to appreciate, oh, this is something wonderful, this is something, so many things in our Shastra is beyond our direct comprehension. So much, perhaps most, of what we hear. And so there's, in a sense, a kind of found basic experience we can have, and that is the sense of adbhuta. Adbhuta means wonder. And wonder is, in Srila Rupa Goswami's system of different kinds of emotion relationships that we can have with Krishna, there are major emotional sthāyi, fixed positions, and then there's minor, and amongst what he calls a minor one, 7 of them, is adbhuta rasa. Adbhuta means wonder. So I think this sense of wonder it's a good thing. We live in a time when what's the word? Yes, it was a German sociologist, Max Weber, who famously spoke about modern life as being characterized by disenchantment. You know the word disenchantment? Disenchantment. Bezauberung und Nicht-Bezauberung, maybe? Everyone's looking at me with a blank face. To be enchanted is to be in a state of wonder. Are you looking up enchantment? Rupa Vilas?
Enttäuschung.
Oh, yeah.
Translation in Google, disenchantment.
Okay, but in this context, it's more than that.
This has not to believe in wonder.
Yeah.
Close the possibility to believe in wonder.
Yeah. So, yeah, no, it's like that. We lose the ability to wonder, to believe in what is wonderful.
Another word which maybe fits better, Ernüchterung.
Ernüchterung. Okay, maybe.
Oder Entzauberung.
Entzauberung, that's it. That's it. I think we got it now. Entzauberung. That's probably what Max Weber used. Yeah, so we live in the whole atmosphere is sort of durchdrungen. It's pervaded by Entzauberung. And all of our literature is, one way to understand, is an attempt for us to recover this ability to be bezauber, you'd say, to be enchanted. And so the idea is not to try to analyze how something that may be fantastical to us could be the case. It's more to simply appreciate, here is something which I cannot comprehend with my limited understanding. So, for example, when Lord Chaitanya has kirtan with his associates in Navadvip, and he sees that the devotees are tired one day, he plants a mango seed. It immediately produces a whole mango tree full of mangoes which have no seed and which have no skin. And he can distribute that to all the devotees. And we go, nah, I don't believe it. I don't believe it. That's just some story. Or we can say, well, maybe there's a biological explanation that something happened and they interpreted it that way. Or we can say, well, that's just these devotees, they're feeling like that. And they like to imagine it, and so they write it as if it happened. So we can, this is called the hermeneutics of suspicion. Hermeneutics means interpretation. Suspicion means, I don't believe it. But what we can do instead is say, wow, that's amazing. I can hardly imagine. But isn't it wonderful? But I agree, I still wish that someone had had a video camera when Lord Chaitanya was dancing in Rath Yatra. Is that okay? Anything else? Yes, Rupa Milas.
I have a question according to the Harinam Sankirtan movement, actually.
Mm.
I'm wondering sometimes, because Lord Chaitanya, he started all this movement, and if we read how was the whole environment, and that there are some descriptions, for example, that Lord Chaitanya was passing through a village, and there were some people, they were working in the garden, and then they saw Lord Chaitanya and all the devotees who was following, and they just left everything and they just followed.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, this was such a big impact that time. So what's going on? Why we don't see, for example, right now a parade of devotees going passing in the town, the street, and so what's the reason? Or will we reach a point, because the golden age is still going on, that there will be like verzaubered everything? So, or do you know?
For that, I have to get out my crystal ball.
Or is there anywhere in Shastra some descriptions or predictions, or which can give us a better understanding?
Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur said that the day will come when devotees from, and he listed a few countries, I think including Germany, Russia, where else? America, one or two others maybe. He said they will all come to Mayapur and they will chant, what was it specifically? Gaura? Huh? Jai Sachinandana Gaura Hari. So that was a prediction, and it came true. So, what other predictions are there? I don't know.
I mean, there's this, I guess, from Nityananda Prabhu, then when this huge temple, in our case, the TOVP is opening, then actually the golden age is really starting. Right?
Is that what it specifies? Okay, I'm not sure. Yeah. I think when that temple opens, the first thing we're going to realize is that it's too small.
Like always.
So many people are going to be coming. It's going to be too small. Yeah.
My Krishna, sorry. Sorry.
Huh? So.
And how is this to see in connection of the prediction of Lord Chaitanya himself, that in every town, village,
Yes.
the whole name will be
pritiviteya chechata nagaradigram sarvatra prachar hoive more nam. That's the prediction. It's in Chaitanya Bhagavata, Vrindavan. In Spain, His Holiness Yadunandan Swami has a program. He feels very strongly that we should realize that prediction. And so he's made it his mission that every single one of the 52 provinces of Spain will have something going on, some namhata, something will be going on, some regular thing will go. So he's made that his mission. He said so far they have 12 provinces where something's happening. And he said, I don't know if it'll be all done in his lifetime, but he's aiming for it. 52, there's 52 weeks in the year, so yeah, he wants to, I don't know, but he's enthusiastic for that. But I don't know, some places you look on the planet and you think, ooh, wow, when is it going to come there? Some places. I guess our general principle should be, for Lord Chaitanya, everything is possible. I always like to share with devotees the comment that His Holiness Kadamba Swami used to make about the 3-story building or the 3 dimensions of ISKCON. On the ground floor, there is everything that we see. There's temples, there's organization, management, there's financial arrangements, there's things like that. It's pretty much all the things that, where we say in English, the rubber meets the road in our society. And on the next level up, there's our sadhana, there's our practice, there's chanting Hare Krishna, there's associating with devotees, there's having festivals, retreats, reading, chanting, all of the things that we can do with help, with facility which is given from this ground floor, but which is not necessarily dependent on those facilities. And which can go on also when some things going on the ground floor we may even not like. That's a bigger topic, but it's engaging with the material world. Things go on. We may not like how something's managed, or we may say, oh, that's not management, that's mismanagement. Whatever it is, on the next floor up, it doesn't have to be dependent. Our sadhana can go on, whatever is going on or not going on, downstairs. And then, Kadamba Kanana Maharaj says, then there's the 3rd floor. What's that? That's where Lord Chaitanya, he once explained it this way, that's where Lord Chaitanya is actively spreading the Krishna consciousness movements all over the universe, whether we see it or not, and whether we are participating in it or not. It's happening. It's going on. It's there. So one way also, I think, of thinking about what we can do is we can endeavor to sensitize ourselves more to how the Krishna consciousness movement is going on. In other words, to be more perceptive. Oh, just see, here's this devotee distributed a book today, and there someone chanted Hare Krishna. And then see that as, see the unlimited feature of that. See how that is in itself a miracle, how that is an expansion. Yeah. Does that make sense? I hope it makes sense to you, because I'm not sure it makes sense to me. Okay, let's stop there for this evening, and we can continue tomorrow. Okay, thank you. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Chaitanya-charitamrita ki jai, Shri Krishna Kaviraj Goswami ki jai, Gauradesh.